the location. This is the wall, first of all. See, this is the wall of the house of Justice Varma. And when we reached here, see what we are finding. What we can see that this is 9CE. That is the series of the number of these 500 rupees note, which is lying right here.
सोचा मैंने यहाँ किसी के घर में आग लगी होगी, उसके पैसे जल गए होंगे शायद, तो उसका कूड़ा यहाँ गिरा था, वो हम उठा रहे थे, उसमें से 500 के नोट निकल रहे थे चले हुए। मुश्किल से 20-25 नोट तो ऐसे थे और कुछ कूड़े में जा चुके थे।
So have you given a report to the senior officials? Or that
No report was asked from me.
No report has been asked from you. Sir, did anyone contacted you, sir?
ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इसके लिए एक 3 सदस्यीय कमेटी बनाई है। तो ये 3 सदस्यीय जो समिति बनी है वो जांच कर रही है। जांच की रिपोर्ट आने पे बाकी बात होगी।
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very special episode of the Newshour. The judiciary, the third pillar of the democracy, the guardian of rights and the conscience keeper of the nation is facing a turmoil. Today, the Holy Temple of Justice has been singed by the blazing inferno of cash, cover-up and contradictions. The fire in the outhouse of a Delhi High Court judge, Justice Yashwant Varma, has raged across the judicial corridors and corridors of citizens of India. In fact, the only thing that can douse this flame of suspicion is greater accountability, scrutiny and transparency. But are we ready for it? Over the course of the show, I will tell you about the cash, the possible cover-up and finally the contradictions that still remain. Let's begin with the piles of cash. On the Newshour on Friday night, I told you how it's not piles but sacks of cash that were found, half burnt, some of them. Times Now was the only channel which told you that the cash amount as per sources was projected to be anywhere in the region of 50 crore rupees. Stored in sacks. Today that newsbreak has been completely vindicated. Now testimonies, documentation and 3 photographs and a video of the unaccounted currency are available just through the report of the Delhi High Court Chief Justice. Watch on your screen 3 pictures of the alleged cash burning up in flames. They appear to be stuffed in sacks as I had reported on Friday on the Newshour itself. One of the pictures shows a firefighter standing next to a pile of half-burnt currency. Let's show you the video where you can hear firefighters exclaiming, "Dekho, Mahatma Gandhi jal rahe hain." Watch for yourself.
महात्मा गांधी में आग लग रही है भाई। महात्मा गांधी में आग लग रही है भाई। महात्मा गांधी में आग लग रही है भाई। महात्मा गांधी में आग लग रही है भाई।
Mahatma Gandhi mein aag lag rahi hai bhai. These are the words of the fireman. The Chief Justice's report has stated that only the people in the bungalow had access to this outhouse room. Justice Upadhyaya, Chief Justice of Delhi High Court, was informed by the police commissioner around 4:50 p.m. on 15th of March. After the fire was brought under control, 4 to 5 half-burnt sacks were found containing remnants of Indian currency. This is quote-unquote the report. His conclusion was that the entire matter warrants a deeper probe. Now, let's tell you what Justice Varma had to say in his defense as he responded to this particular question raised by the Delhi Chief Justice to him. He claimed that the cash did not belong to him or his family, that the storeroom was not locked and was commonly accessible by people in the house, even CPWD staff, that neither his family nor staff was shown any cash and that he was a victim of a conspiracy to malign him. Controversy was cash found or not? That's the question we are asking. If cash was found, here's another contradiction. The Delhi Fire Services Chief, Atul Garg, first claimed that there was no reports of any cash that was found. He then turned around and said, never said that. And then he was again quoted as a clarification that he hadn't spoken to anybody. The fireman there standing was watching Mahatma Gandhi jal rahe hain. How can the fire chief actually say no cash was seen by anybody? Incidentally, the fireman standing next to the burning cash, his visuals are visible, his voice can be heard discussing कि Mahatma Gandhi jal rahe hain bhai. And this has been released by the Supreme Court. As you just heard, the third contradiction that comes over the transfer of Justice Varma back to the Allahabad High Court. The Allahabad High Court Bar Council claims that the collegium repatriated Varma to Allahabad High Court, but the Supreme Court press statement had de-linked the transfer and the alleged recovery of cash, saying transfer is independent and separate from the inquiry that's going on. This was on Friday the 21st. After the report comes out, the Chief Justice of Delhi is reported to have stated, I received communication from the Chief Justice of India intimating proposal on repatriation and agreed with the same. Why is there this contradiction as well? Well, we still don't know. Several questions. Who stored the cash in the premises of the High Court Judge Yashwant Varma? Where did it come from? And who removed the burnt cash on 15th morning after it had been videographed? You just saw the cash and the contradictions, but do they point towards a cover-up or a conspiracy? Well, this report uploaded on the Supreme Court's website seems to have left behind more questions than answers. And it is these questions that we will raise during the course of the next 1 hour. The questions that we want answers to are, number one, Supreme Court had de-linked the transfer from the fire incident. Why does this not come across in the report of the Delhi High Court Chief Justice? Where did the proposal of transfer of Justice Varma emanate from? And why did the Supreme Court backtrack after the whole incident became public? Did Justice Upadhyaya suspect arson in the fire incident? If so, why was a report not registered? Why no case was registered with the Delhi police on March 15? When burnt cash remnants were mentioned in the police report, why did the police only do verbal communication and not count this? Burnt currency notes were left unattended in the storehouse. Why? Is there an official police diary recording the recoveries and what was the amount? Did the police share the recovery diary with the courts and the justices? Was there a discrepancy in who reported the fire, the daughter of the judge or the personal secretary? Who cleared the debris from the storeroom the next morning, and why was it done in a hush-hush manner? Why does nobody have a record? Who does Justice Varma suspect of framing him? Why is that not out in the open? Why was the inquiry limited to oral responses initially? Was the delay in case an attempt to bury the matter? Many questions that really still remain unanswered. And Nalin Kohli, a senior advocate and spokesperson of the BJP, joining me on the show. Aman Lekhi, former additional solicitor general and senior advocate in the Supreme Court. Abhimanyu Bhandari, senior advocate in the Supreme Court. And Hitesh Jain, senior lawyer, also on the show with us. Let me first ask you, Nalin Kohli, the manner in which this entire incident has unfolded raises several questions, and as a journalist, I'm duty bound to raise these questions on the show today. Number one, the question is that these notes were found or embers as the videos and the photographs claim, yet Justice Yashwant Varma says he had no clue how it went there. The Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court says nobody else had access other than the family to this particular room. Does not match the statement that comes from Justice Yashwant Varma. But before all of this, if there were these currency notes, where is the entry how much was this currency? If it was stored in sacks, shouldn't this be a criminal investigation rather than oral depositions, oral questions that are being raised? And on the 15th of March, the knowledge of this was with the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court as well as the Supreme Court, and it is the first time that the collegium met on the 20th of March. What happened in these 5 days? Were we hoping for gods to step in and hush up the entire matter?
Your questions are valid. And at the beginning of the show, your introduction was very impressive. You really, I think, summed up the entire issue very well in a few sentences. I have a few quick comments to make, which will probably give clarity on some of the aspects you are raising. Of course, this is very, very serious. It's very disturbing. And the truth has to come out. There's no question about it. And your questions are logical, because this is a secure area. This is the house of a judge, which has security. The people who live there are identified. There's no free movement of people who can do anything there. The outhouse is within that perimeters, even if it's not where the judge himself lives. Now, the fire department videos clearly show large sums of money, whatever be the number, of burnt cash, and some of it not so burnt. And then, of course, are the controversies in terms of the different statements coming from the fire department. That's part one. Part two is, how does this system work per se? Where there is a sort of a protection on judges, and therefore there is a system in place by the Supreme Court in looking at any question of any questionable conduct by a judge or any incident like this which is quite unprecedented. Now, that system basically calls for the sitting Chief Justice, which is what Justice Upadhyaya in Delhi High Court has done, given an inquiry report, or at least pointed out that he's not got cogent answers, and it calls for a deeper probe. Under that system, the collegium, which would be Chief Justice Khanna, Justice Gavai, Justice Suryakant, Justice Oak and Justice Vikramnath, have now ordered what is the inquiry system in place, which is now 2 Chief Justices of the High Courts, which is Punjab and Haryana High Court Justice Sheelam Nagu, and Himachal Pradesh High Court Justice Sandhavalia, along with a judge of the Karnataka High Court, Justice Anu Sivaraman. So they are all going to now go deeper into it. So that protection is there on the judges. Why? Because judges are treated in a sort of a secure manner, assumed to be discharging judicial work that is in the interests of justice, and therefore cannot be treated in the same manner as XYZ individual citizens like you and me, on whom a criminal investigation can take off immediately. Because what is envisaged under the Constitution is finally the removal process. Are we not all equal in the eyes of law?
I want to raise that question, and Nalin Kohli, tell me if I'm wrong as a layperson. I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand legalese. But are we not same and equal in the eyes of law?
So I think the investigation for corruption eventually has to be equal. So while the process is being followed, which is as per the constitutional scheme or as it has been put in, this one is of course put in by the Supreme Court, at the end of it, there will be a private citizen. Because if there is a resignation or a removal, there cannot be protection for an act that is criminal. As simple as that. Because after all, let me put it in a different way. If someone commits a murder also under protection, in that case also eventually you can't say you'll go scot-free because of the privileges that came with that office. But you are going to now say that I will enjoy it after I've demitted office, or after I've been removed from office, or after I've resigned from office, the 3 circumstances. Okay. So I don't think the answers will be...
So let me get in Aman Lekhi. Aman Lekhi, in such a situation, I first want to ask you, 5 days of no action between 15th of March and 20th of March. Can that be explained? Number one. Number two, the contradictions on the transfer of the said judge, which was first denied, then now confirmed. As a layperson, what do we make out of this?
Well, Navika, there are plenty of incongruities over here, but I'll give a staggered response. First, as far as the judge is concerned, I personally think we have his explanation for whatever it is worth, and he has disowned any link with the money. This explanation is going to be probed by a committee of 3 judges. So as far as the culpability of the judge is concerned, our capacity to speculate is in some way constrained by the process which is already in place, and I think should be given play for the purposes of actually unearthing what has actually happened, because it is very serious. And our speaking anything on the issue while the matter is under probe would, in my opinion, be slightly premature. That said, there are certain things which have a very important bearing on this issue. You raised some few very pertinent questions. There is a fire. Fire is in a property, and when there is a fire, it amounts to mischief. Mischief, when it causes damage of the nature it has done, is a cognizable offence and a serious cognizable offence. Because the cognizable offence, ordinarily, an FIR will be registered on intimation, more so because the judge has disowned any link with what is over there. So the occasion for protection, the judge will not arise, because insofar as the law is, you cannot proceed in FIR against a judge without the permission of the Chief Justice. While you may not proceed against the judge when the judge itself is saying that what has actually happened is actually wrong, in that event you don't need to go by that procedure. You have to probe the mischief, because as the mischief is concerned, that's a cognizable offence. A cognizable offence that requires to be requires to be investigated, and the procedure is in place where that is concerned, and it's inexplicable why that was not done. That is something which the police has to explain. The judge doesn't have to explain that, because the judge is saying, I am aggrieved. The police has to explain why. Why is it that this was not done? Two, now there's sacks of cash. Now sacks of cash, this is unaccounted money. It's unaccounted money that brings in the income tax. It will bring in the income tax act, because this question is, whose money is it? From where has it come? You can't just leave the money there. Now, as far as this money is concerned, it can be either case property where mischief is concerned, or it will be relevant for the income tax is concerned, because you cannot just leave the cash lying around. Where has that cash gone? We don't know where the cash has gone. All we know is the cash got burned, but where has the cash gone? Now, that's what a judge says. The judge is also saying the same thing. He is asking this question, where is the cash? Now, when the judge is asking the question, where is the cash? Now, who is to answer that question? The question has to be answered by the police or by the fire agency. And those authorities were in some way concerned this particular exercise have to account as to what they have done with it. And the contradiction which you pointed out of the fire statements adds a lot of enigma to this, because we really don't know what has happened. Which brings me to the third point. The third point is the most serious point over here. The judge says that this is the result of a conspiracy. Now, this is the most important aspect of this entire case, because as far as the judicial independence is concerned, you've got institutional independence and you've got the individual independence of the judge. Where the judge is saying that he is subject matter of an attack, and this is an attack on his credibility, so as to in some way disqualify him from acting, then this is a very, very serious allegation which requires probe first. Because this requires probe first, that will be the link. That will be the link between the money and this particular suggestion of a conspiracy. And it is here that the whole case will unravel. If the explanation given by the judge is correct, then the fault lies elsewhere, and that fault is of far more grave character than simply recovery of money. And if supposing this allegation is actually false, if supposing what the judge is saying is not true, then in that event the question of the action of those who were first there at that point of time and the omission to act will become equally relevant. So we are now today just proceeding on conjecture, on unverified facts. I personally feel we have to keep the judge aside, because see, we are, as the judicial system is concerned, a bit conservative over there. I will not say that you just said that is everyone not equal under the law. I completely agree, everyone is equal under the law. At the same time, the sanctity of the system has to be maintained. What you have to keep in mind is that the procedure is already under play. We have a procedure dealing with this particular instance. That procedure has been activated. What I personally feel is, while we hold the police to account, while we deal with what the fire officer is saying, while we explain what has actually happened over there, while we deal with the aspect that the legal mechanism to deal with this has been ignored, I personally think we should segregate it from the explanation of the judge, and as far as the explanation of the judge is concerned, await the outcome of this particular report, and only thereafter we can actually proceed to either condone or to condemn. Because right now, the information which we have is totally incomplete. The judge may very well be right. The judge may be a victim. Now, we don't know whether the judge is actually a victim or not, but can we exclude the fact that this is a possibility? That is something we cannot lose sight of.
Okay, even if I take what you say at face value, who will explain the contradictions? And I bring in Hitesh Jain. Abhimanyu, I'm coming to you, but Mr. Hitesh Jain, there are contradictions. Contradictions on what happened between the 15th and 20th of March. Why were there oral? If there is an explanation, investigation, inquiry, why was there a period of silence between the 15th and the 20th of March? Why were the things that are being made public now not made public then? Because were we waiting for the hand of God to sort of cover up the entire issue? It's a question. It's a legitimate question people will ask. Number two, the cash was burnt. There is a point that is made through the videos and the pictures that there was burning cash and Mahatma Gandhi jal rahe hain bhai statements coming in, whereas the judge himself in his explanation says there was no cash found. I was not shown anything of the kind. But the videos which were given and which were shown to him between the 15th and 20th clearly show that videos of that cash burning existed. So how did he not know? And the other question of the next morning, how the debris was cleared up. Does that not also add to the questions of the investigation? I'm not sitting here in judgment of anybody because honestly I don't know enough. I'm just piecing together the jigsaw puzzle of the stuff that is in public domain at the moment. And these are the questions I come up with. I want answers to these, Hitesh Jain.
Navika, my problem is it's been over 8 days and we still do not know what are the facts and where does the truth lies. It's been over 8 days, and if you will look at the statements of the Honorable Judge and the inquiry committee report and all, after that also it is very difficult to pinpoint as to what has actually happened. But what we know for sure, a fact, where a judge is alleging a conspiracy, and if he is alleging a conspiracy that has taken place in his house, then that can be the first step to start the probe and to find out whether in fact such conspiracy took place. Second, if the judge is claiming a mischief, that can be a starting point to register the FIR. So I fail to understand when a judge is claiming that there has been a conspiracy, there has been some problem, there has been a mischief that has been played. Why no FIR has been launched on this specific facts, or we still do not know whether an FIR has been filed or whether any probe is going on. We still do not know. In an ordinary criminal matter, when an incident like this takes place, first, we know the detail of who is the first informant. We still do not know. Second, there is a detailed Panchanama that is drawn out. We still do not know whether a Panchanama was drawn out. We still do not know who are the witnesses to the Panchanama or any details pertaining to the Panchanama, because the Panchanama, the spot Panchanama would have given a clear answer about whether there was a burnt cash that was found or that was not found. And fifth, if there was whatever the incidents was there, and there is a allegation that there was a conspiracy, then how come the site was cleared, and at whose instance this site was cleared, or that storehouse or whatever it was there? So we still do not know. The problem is in the last 8 days where people are shocked is why does it take 8 days? And when you do not know the facts, then there is all kind of speculation, all kinds of rumors. According to me, it is a problem where a particular judge will have to answer, but there is a systemic problem, and I'm going to call a spade, and lawyers are afraid, or people are afraid in demanding transparency and accountability from the judiciary. It is very important that it is high time we address the issue of transparency. We demand transparency and accountability, and we should start, merely because they are judges, they should get a separate status. Merely because they are judges, there should be a separate way of looking at it. I mean, on the basis of all these facts, had it been any ordinary mortal, you and me know what could have happened and how the investigating agencies would have swooped in. So I have a larger problem. I also have a problem where the judges themselves are not speaking and demanding the transparency and accountability. So there are larger issues which can be discussed, but on the facts, as I mentioned, we still do not know what has happened.
Very well said. The larger issue is of transparency, I agree, but we will reach that larger issue at a later stage, because right now we are still grappling with the preliminary issues. And Abhimanyu Bhandari, I want to ask you, the 2 points that stick out the most in my mind at the moment when I look at this case. Number one, that many people had access to this storeroom, and that's stated by the honorable judge, which is objected to, or rather contradicted by the Delhi Chief Justice's report, which says the room was locked and it doesn't look like anybody other than the family had access to it. First, there is a discrepancy there, and second, the next day the cleanup. So ना पता चल रहा है कि who put the money there, ना पता चल रहा है किसने सफाई कर दी. Are these not two very, very, basic questions that remain unanswered?
Navika, absolutely. There are quite a lot of questions that the report of the Honorable the Chief Justice, the representation made by the sitting judge throws up. And these are questions which the probe committee will have to go into in detail and come out with a report. The probe committee is there to actually look at these reports, to look at all the material that is available, take the assistance of whichever investigating authority they wish to do, and to come and unravel what the real situation and the real picture is. Now, there are a lot of questions that all this material throws up. Where did the cash come from? Was there cash? Is this video recording of that storeroom where the fire took place? How much cash was it? The judge was on holiday. He, from his statement, looks like that he was on a holy holiday somewhere else outside the city of Delhi. And that cash was recovered in an outhouse in a bungalow, which was notwithstanding, it was inside his residential premises, but it was an outhouse. It was not his own living quarters. And that was cash just lying loosely around there for anybody to come and have a holy. And this fire suddenly takes place on a day when the judge himself is not there in the premises. Who called the fire engine brigade? So these are questions which one will have to look into. There are competing questions, and one has to really, I think the committee will have to go through with a tooth comb and will have to unravel as to what really happened on that date. There are a lot of unanswered questions, and it would be extremely unfair. While of course it all shocks our senses, when we see this video, all of us are stakeholders in the judicial system and it really hurts us. But we have to be very careful before coming to any conclusion, because a fair inquiry is what is demanded. Now please see that the Honorable the Chief Justice of India has acted quickly, has actually, I'm seeing this is the first case, and correct me, there are, Mr. Lekhi is here, the other senior lawyers here. Please correct me. First time I'm seeing a case where the Supreme Court has acted actually quite swiftly and has published everything on the website, Navika. And that we must acknowledge. Even the video, I think, that you're showing on Times Now is something that you've accessed from the Supreme Court website. And therefore that also shows that we've now moved on to a system of transparency. Nothing can be hidden. Please note that 5 years back, I would not have ever expected all this material on the website of the Supreme Court. Today, we have the report of the Chief Justice on the Supreme Court, or the Chief Justice of Delhi High Court's report on the website. We have the representation made by the judge, because the judge, of course, can't speak to the press. So he can only, his representation as to what is his version. Plus, the video itself, which created this entire furor and everything came in the picture. That video, wherever that video has come from or not come from, but still, that video has already been put out so that public can see what the video is, media can chew over it what the video is. Now, of course, the inquiry committee will have to follow the process of law and fairness and come to the conclusion as to what is the value of this video, what was there. Was the judge, as the judge claims to be a part of some bigger conspiracy, was he a part of any bigger conspiracy, or is he trying to hide something? These are issues, of course, which the committee will go into. And please note, a very independent committee of very senior two sitting High Court Chief Justices has been formed, and a judge from Karnataka High Court. Judges from various parts of the country are part of this committee. So I think that the judge will have to, of course, give his explanation. The committee will have to answer all these questions that you've raised out in your program today. Did CPWD people have access to this? Who all came to that site? I'm sure there is security in the house. Are you saying you don't believe the version of the Delhi High Court Chief Justice, who says in his report submitted to the Chief Justice that it seems nobody else had access to that room? So are you
are we going to now question that version which is in the report?
I believe with the version that the Honorable Chief Justice of Delhi High Court has pictured in his report, that it was within his residential premises and only people who could have had access to that site would be those who would be allowed by the security parameters to come in there. Please note that and therefore the Chief Justice has demanded for a wider probe. And therefore, this probe is very important to see that, there are arguments to and fro. And this is the reason that a wider probe is required and one can't jump into a conclusion either ways, either to exonerate the judge or
fair
to...
point. Nobody is wanting to jump to conclusions. Nobody is wanting to jump to conclusions because obviously we can't be judges in a case that involves judges and we're not even lawyers. So nobody is wanting to judge the entire matter. But let me go around the panel and ask Nalin Kohli first. Nalin Kohli, the fact that the Honorable Judge says there was no cash, he was not told about any cash and that there was no cash. The video shows otherwise, and then the cash or whatever the burnt embers were cleaned the next morning. Doesn't this raise questions? Neither did anybody know how it came in, but it was cleaned up the next morning, and that also nobody knows how it happened. Can this happen in your own residential premises? Isn't that a fair question to ask? And number two, while the judge and his wife, according to the statement that has been submitted, both were out of town, but there were other family members in the house. There is the mention of a daughter by the judge, Honorable Judge himself, that she was in the house, because there are mentions of 2 phone calls. One, I think, by the daughter, one by the private secretary. Does this not also become one of the very curious parts of this mystery?
No, absolutely, Navika, the questions are all valid. And these are the answers that, to put it frankly, we are waiting for. As Aman Bhai said, this process is under play. I mean, I think in fairness, within a week, you have from the incident to the Supreme Court uploading the video, whatever could be done has happened in a short time. Now, the nature of the judicial system is to have the complete picture and then speak. They will not speak in the middle per se. So I think you will, in a short period of time, know many things that should come out and are expected to come out, whatever be that thing. The second part is, we must also bear in mind the collegium per se, or the 5 senior most judges, are not in Delhi, at least for 2 days. We know that Justice Gawai and Justice Vikram Nath, who are the 2nd most and the 5th most senior judges in the collegium, are in Manipur with other judges. So it is possible that over the next 2-3 days, there will be a physical consultation, if not consultation already taking place over the phone. Justice Suryakant was believed to be travelling, so we have to wait to see what more comes from the Supreme Court now that they are putting things out there. Then a point came out in the debate, I think Hitesh raised it, that if it was an ordinary citizen in the house, you would have an FIR, etc. I think we need to recognize the difference not just of a judge, of someone who takes the oath of office, right down from the highest executive position in the government to ministers, to governors, to judges. There is a protection that the Constitution and the provisions of office give you in terms of not everything happen instantly in the manner that it would happen. So while all the calls for the full story, for all answers to the questions are justified and are expected, we need to wait for this process which is underway, of the process put out by the Supreme Court, the committee, etc., to conclude, and the logical next steps have to be expected. So I think I would say we should leave it within that scope and do so. Last point. While certainly when we see something like this, shocks the conscience, shakes us, raises questions, this cannot be made an opportunity to run down the entire judiciary. There will be instances of a political person, a bureaucrat, a doctor, engineer, lawyer, anyone. Or if you have a case of corruption or alleged corruption or something that shocks or is an impropriety, it can't mean the others who are good in the system, hardworking, honest, do their work, they all should be branded together. That's why the questions have to be asked, the answers have to be done.
But at the same time, I don't know why you get that impression. Nobody is doing that. We are talking about the specific case and we are seeking answers to this specific case. But Aman Lekhi, I'm not a criminal lawyer. Tell me, does the procedure vary between a judge and a common citizen? The Panchnama and the seizure notes, etc. that Hitesh Jain spoke about. Is there anywhere in law mentioned that if it is a judge, then you don't make these panchnamas? Because already questions are being raised, and Abhimanyu Bhandari has raised that question, that the purported video, is it the video of that outhouse room, or is it part of the conspiracy that is being spoken about? I want to ask you, where do you stand on that? What are the answers on that? And there's one way of looking at it, and let me be the devil's advocate. On the day number 8, we have the report uploaded on the Supreme Court website. Great. But it took 8 days, and it took one story on Friday morning before anything became public. So, it cuts both ways. Between 15th and 19th, nothing really moved. On 20th morning, when the story was reported out there in public domain, that's when we began to see some statements begin to come out. I want to ask you, is it the fourth pillar that is required to shake the third pillar to answer questions?
No, absolutely not. Ideally, that should not be the process at all. And as far as the institution is concerned, the institution should respond with immediacy. There's no doubt about that particular proposition. Now, I'll just put a couple of caveats here, depending upon what you said. You put me a few questions. One, the difference between proceeding against an ordinary person and a judge. Now, the only protection a judge is, you can't register an FIR against a judge without permission, Chief Justice. That is the only permission. But as I pointed out in the beginning, this was, if the case had to be registered, the registration of the case was not against the judge. The registration of the case would have been through a cognizable offence, which was mischief. Now, unfortunately, the non-registration of the case by the police has in some way impacted the judge too, because then all of us are talking about some conspiracy, some collusion between the judge and the police. That you see, because the case is not registered, as you're saying, and a very justifiable presumption, the attempt to conceal. So the first question, that's what I said at the beginning, the first question you have to answer is that once this report is made, and there is definitely mischief, which is a cognizable offence, then FIR is to be registered immediately, and investigations proceed, and whatever that area has to be in any case sealed, whatever has to be investigated, the statements of the people recorded, identified, intimated, everything has to be done. We don't know whether that is done at all or not. Now, that is in fact the first flaw in this particular process, apart from the fact that there is in fact a delay. The point is that particular, by reason of the omission to do that, and I also mentioned about the income tax, the omission to do that raises these questions, and we start in some way speculating that there has to be a motive which is hidden from the public eye, and it's reasonable to suggest that because someone important is involved, therefore you attempt to suppress. Now, while that is said, the point is, we have in this a process, whether we like it or not, there is a process, and the process is a very important part of the system, because the whole restraint which is there in a polity governed by rule of law is in procedure. Because if we in any way whimsically, impulsively respond on the basis of our assumptions about a right or wrong, then the procedural protections, which are absolutely imperative, get lost. Now, those procedural protections are very necessary. Now, whether we like it or not, whether some delay at all or not, that is secondary. The point is, on the procedure it stands, an action has been initiated. Now, the action has been initiated, and the probe, if the questions are seen, the probe is comprehensive. The probe is not, we have not dealt with this particular issue, but as to the questions that be answered, and the issue which the committee has to see, covers all aspects which we are discussing today. It covers all aspects we are discussing today. That means there is no hesitation to probe. Because there is no hesitation to probe, which will give you, that is the press, the responsibility to then hold those conducting the probe to account that, see, the probe was wide-ranging, why is the report deficient? So as far as the probe is concerned, the probe is not holding back. So that is the procedural protection which is in place for the purpose of dealing with a wrong which no one is disputing. The judge is not saying that there is no wrong. Everyone says there is a wrong. Question is finding out the culprit. Now, the issue is the judge the culprit, or has the judge been made the culprit? Because of the problems which have happened over there, these issues have come up. And what Hitesh very correctly pointed out, that's what I said in the beginning also. If the allegations of conspiracy and the offenses of mischief, this got nothing to do with the judge or protection of the judge. In fact, to protect the judge, you have to investigate. Because it is through that investigation that this will be unraveled. Why? Why is this not done? Because this will help the judge concerned to vindicate the name. And when we're dealing with this particular thing, the last point I want to make is, yes, all of us are very charged up. An ordinary person in this situation would have been in custody, no question about that. We won't be discussing over here, the police have picked him up and in income tax would have come, perhaps the ED etc. would have been following suit and FR would have been followed by an ECIR and everything would have taken place. However, whether we like it or not, the judicial system has for cause given limited, and I say limited protection. That limited protection is only for the incipient stage. It is not an absolute protection. The point is, you cannot allow a situation where judges are dragged to court, because that will undermine the system at all, whether we like it at all or not. That's the reason why secrecy as a value in an age of transparency cannot be discounted. Much as there has to be a balance. So what I'm saying is, merely because the judge has not been dragged to the police station, or there is nothing against the judge as such in the FIR, which is not something which we have to be concerned with. We have to deal with the things where the judge is not involved, where we point out, as you are pointing out, the deficiency in the system. What are deficiency in the system? No FIR, where the mischief is concerned, delay, where this aspect is concerned. Yes, you are entitled to put these questions in the public forum, and there's an obligation to respond. But while dealing with this, let's not confuse the issue and say that because of this, we will assume that what has actually happened, the wrong is at the judge's feet. That is something which we have to stay away from. Let the jury be out on that. We have to wait. Yes, very serious.
So then my next question is, can the judge be the jury in its own case? Hitesh Ji.
Well, Navika, two things. As far as the judge is concerned, I don't think he is being a jury in his own case. There is an inquiry committee that has been set up, so one should not speculate. I agree with the view. Second, I'm not asking about an FIR alleging something against the wrongdoing of a judge. But what we were discussing, and the point which I made was that, I will explain to you in a simple thing. Suppose a theft takes place in any house of a judge, or any offense takes place. What is the proper course of action? Obviously, there is an FIR that will be done. Obviously, investigation that will be done. Obviously, there will be investigating officer who will land at the site. They will do whatever they have to do as a part of the investigation. So as far as those procedures are concerned, I don't think there are exceptions in law for the judge and for the normal individual. As far as his conduct as a judge, that is a subject matter of inquiry. We should not speculate. But I am on the larger issue. When the judge himself has alleged in his own statement there is a mischief, there is a conspiracy, that when he himself has stated in his own statement of 22nd March, which is in public domain, that in the first instance his PS or PPS did not find any cash. And only when he was confronted with the video, he found that there was this waves of cash that were burning and all. So he himself is now alleging there has been a conspiracy. So these allegations are not against the judge. And even if, as Mr. Lekhi rightly pointed out, that this is for to protect the judge, someone has to investigate and go to the truth. And this is not something the judicial inquiry is going to yield. You need the proper investigating machineries like income tax to come on the spot. You need the police officers to file the FIR and look at the investigation of mischief and conspiracy. Because I can candidly say, and I will call spade a spade, it is not the domain of the judiciary to find out whether there has been a conspiracy that has taken place. There has to be a proper inquiry. And if someone is going to shy away from the inquiry, there are more questions that are going to raise, and it is going to look murky and murky. So it is in the interest of the judiciary, they bifurcate as far as the judge's conduct is concerned. Let there be a proper inquiry, and let's not speculate and let's not make a comment on the judgment. But when the judge himself has claimed there is an attempt to malign or there has been a conspiracy. This requires an investigation by the normal agencies, and I don't think anyone can defend or demand.
Absolutely. For example, the report says that the call detailed records have to be seen. There has to be forensic analysis of all of these. So Abhimanyu Bhandari, when all of these investigations have to be done, a committee of judges cannot be the investigators of such information, and it is the job of specialized investigative agencies to do that part of it. And of course the conduct of the judge, the questions can be part of the inquiry, but there is still the question of the transfer flip-flop. Was there a transfer? If there was no transfer, why did the Allahabad High Court bar raise an objection that we are not a dustbin? And then the explanation of the Supreme Court, which came in, that these are two separate and independent matters. And then the Delhi High Court Chief Justice's report, which says your good self told me that he should be repatriated and I agreed with this. What's going on? Isn't there too much opaqueness in this entire system?
Before I comment on the transfer flip-flop, the first question that you raised was a very valid question. That what is this committee going to do? Because the investigating powers and the investigation forensic tools are with investigating authorities. But please note that what is very welcoming and good to see in the report of the Honorable Chief Justice Supreme Court, which was uploaded in Supreme Court website, is that he has requested the judge to preserve all the telephone data for last, I think, 6 months or more, and not to delete any messages in anything. Of course, this committee that is being formed will be able to take the assistance of the police or the forensics or whichever department to then examine and see what is there, what is not there, and to come to the conclusion whether he was a part of any conspiracy or what he's saying, is there any truth in it or not in it. So I think that the directions issued by the Supreme Court are in a very comprehensive manner to preserve whatever is left, so that material.
Let me interrupt you there. In which case the investigations, as I understand, the agencies will only give what they are asked for. That's not an all-encompassing investigation, is it, Aman Lekhi? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, Navika, please understand. You see, there are two aspects to it. I've been saying it consistently. One is the inquiry aspect, that is by the judge to see the linkage. And this is a very peculiar case because it's not a case of bribery directly to a judge, the judge misusing his position on which evidence that you are spending money as Chief Justice, as the other president's son. This is a unique kind of a case. It's got a duality to it. It's got a duality to it in the sense that it is not in the immediate premises but outside accessible to all, where the person is disowning what is over there and is independently an offense, which I am pointing out, independently an offense. Because independently an offense, that will have a course of action distinct from a judgment.
Well said, Aman Lekhi. Just hold your thoughts, because we have the video now of the debris of the burnt stuff that my reporter Priyank Tripathi has accessed. This video, sacks of cash, what we reported, but this debris clearly shows something else. Where did the embers of that really vanish? The currency notes, questions unanswered, many questions that still searching for answers. Have we lost a crucial time? Will we get answers to all the questions that come out? But as they say, well, justice, hopefully the wheels of motion of justice have begun. How soon will we have answers to all of these questions? We'll wait and watch. Thank you to all my panelists, Aman Lekhi, Nalin Kohli, Abhimanyu Bhandari and Hitesh Jain. Thank you very much for joining me on this special edition of the Newshour tonight.